A few months ago, I came across a Facebook post from a couple who were in a really difficult situation. I didn't know them personally. They weren't past clients. They weren't referrals. They just needed help. They owned a rental property they desperately needed to sell, but there was one major problem. The tenant wouldn't leave. Not only was the tenant refusing to cooperate, but she happened to be an attorney who was threatening legal action at every turn, and communication had totally broken down, and my client's stress was through the roof. But that wasn't their only problem. They also had a deadline. If they couldn't get the property sold by a certain date, they were facing significant tax consequences that would cost them a lot of money. So now they were stuck. They needed cash out of the property, they needed the tenant to move out, and they needed everything to happen within a very short time frame. The clock was ticking. When I first spoke with them, I realized this wasn't just a real estate problem, it was a people problem, as it usually is. It was a communication problem, and it was a timing problem. Instead of simply waiting for the tenant situation to resolve itself, I started helping them create a plan. Drawing on my past experience as a landlord and the professional resources I've built over the years, I connected them with the right people and helped them navigate a very delicate situation. I personally met with the tenant to establish communication and try to reduce the tension. At the time, I knew we couldn't afford to sit around and wait. The moment the tenant moved out, we needed to be ready to get in there and go. I had to have all of my people lined up. So while everyone else was focused on the problem, I started focusing on the solution. I began prospecting for buyers before the property was even fully available. I talked to agents, I talked to buyers. I made sure people knew this home was coming. Eventually, I connected with a family that had been searching unsuccessfully for a home for quite some time. They were very serious buyers, they were super qualified, and they were ready to move quickly. And so the challenge was just trying to line it all up. After nearly 60 days of uncertainty, the tenant finally moved out. And because we had spent weeks preparing, we didn't waste a single day. In fact, before the home was even cleaned and fully prepped for the market, I had those buyers walking through it. And thankfully, they loved it. We wrote an offer the same day, non-contingent with a 17-day close. For my sellers, that was a game changer. Instead of worrying about legal battles and missed deadlines and tax consequences, they suddenly had exactly what they needed: a qualified buyer, a fast closing, and a clear path. The best part is that the buyers won too. They had been struggling to find the right home and kept losing out in competitive situations, and now they had found the house they wanted and were able to secure it quickly, and everybody won. Looking back, this was less a story about selling a house and more a story about solving a problem. Sometimes the most valuable thing a real estate agent does isn't putting a sign in the yard or listing a property online. In fact, that's probably the least of it. Sometimes it's helping people navigate a really complicated situation, creating opportunities where none seem to exist, and finding a path forward when everything feels stuck. If you're dealing with a difficult property, a challenging tenant, or a unique circumstance that doesn't fit the traditional real estate playbook, let's talk. There may be more options available than you realize.